All right, let's try this again, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for bearing with me. Look, BYU wins, business-like performance. Not anything terribly special tonight, but they got it done while waiting for Cincinnati to shoot themselves in the foot repeatedly over and over tonight. And it all marches BYU just one step closer to the Big 12 championship game. Now, if you were a Cougar fan, I'm sure it would have taken some stress away tonight had Arizona State actually lost at Colorado. That is not happening. But still, all you got to do is go take care of UCF next Saturday. And BYU will get its rematch with Texas Tech. Now, BYU is beat up. Okay, that's one thing I want to talk about here. Chase Roberts goes out. Bear Bachmeier was gimpy. LJ Martin was gimpy. But then at the same time, still found a way to score a touchdown, even after it looked like he was trying to pull himself out of the game because that dude is just a warrior. And look, this is not the game that you're going to single out from Bear Bachmeier's entire true freshman season as like the game or anything like that. So it was not a spectacular quintessential BYU performance, but maybe in that way, that's exactly why it is sort of a quintessential BYU performance, because this team is good enough to just go be businesslike, put together a professional effort that is just steady, and it never feels like Cincinnati, a good Cincinnati team this year, playing at home, playing under the lights, getting its opportunity, nip at night that everybody talks about at Nippert, right? They got their chance to go shock the college football world, and it did not happen, and never felt like it was going to, even when it got to 20-14 late in the game. So, with that having said, welcome in, everybody. It is the Open for Business Big 12 podcast. I am your host, John Kurtz. Thank you very much for joining me here tonight. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel as you file in tonight. That is all much appreciated. If you are going to be in the live chat, definitely keep it lively, fill it up. You can submit a super chat by clicking the $ below the chat box. If you are so inclined, that guarantees that your question or comment makes it on the show tonight. I appreciate everybody who does that. Even if not, though, totally free to just like the video and subscribe to the channel. Subscribe to the Open for Business Big 12 newsletter. It's at ofbnews.com. All right. The final in this one is 26-14 after, hey, let's call it what it is, man. A little bit of, I'm not going to say running up the score, but some style points, perhaps. A little bit of style points sprinkled on this one by LJ Martin at the end. Instead of going down, he goes into the end zone, which not only got you to 26, it gave you an opportunity for 2 more points, right, to go for 2. I only halfway chuckle there because, I know they brought up that conversation on the broadcast. I think it kind of helps. If it were just 20-14, I think from people across the college football world who not everybody is watching every single game, okay? I think we've all seen enough of the AP poll to know that, right? And it's, in fairness, it is hard to do, but people who are just box score scanning or looking at the score the next day, 26-14 does look a little bit nicer, right? Maybe it's just in the back of someone's mind, it gives it a little bit more doubt if it's 20-14. Long story short, I don't think it's the worst thing in the world that LJ Martin scored there. Did you really feel like Cincinnati was going to find a miraculous way to score twice, even had they recovered an onside kick? You felt like that Cincinnati offense tonight, against that BYU defense was going to put it together for 2 quick strike drives without shooting itself in the foot first? Because I sure didn't. And it worked out. BYU, 392 total yards in this game. They rushed for 265, and that's really the story, right? Bear Bachmeier has been the story at certain points. He's had a couple games now with over 350 total yards and doing most of that damage through the air. This was not really one of those games. This was a game where LJ Martin got to shoulder the load. And man, aren't you glad in this game that LJ Martin was able to come back from his injury against Iowa State? When that first happened, there were the rumors of like a broken collarbone, and it felt like it was going to be something pretty serious and could really affect this season. And worthy conversation to have about BYU's downfield passing game. Is there enough of one to give Texas Tech some sort of a threat, especially if Chase Roberts is going to be out for any extended period of time? Conversation worth having. But if you didn't have that and you didn't have LJ Martin, then a game like tonight becomes a bit more of a problem, right? But instead, you could just Let the bell cow do his thing, man. 32 carries for 222 yards, a pair of touchdowns for LJ Martin, 7 yards a carry, basically, 6.9. Just a yeoman's effort from him. Bear Bachmeier chipped in with 46 yards rushing, but it was basically nobody else. You had 4 other carries. The 4 other carries outside of those 2 went for a total of -3 yards. So it was all about just ground and pound with LJ Martin, and he is a good enough running back to do that. You heard RG3 talking about him being a guy that's going to be playing on Sundays. I mean, I would certainly echo that sentiment. Like, he's a dude. He is a dude, and it was fun to watch him work throughout the night. And credit Cincy's defense, man. I mean, they were hitting. And a lot of times they were bouncing off of LJ Martin. I feel like I saw more mouthpieces go flying in this game alone than I saw the entire college football season. If that tells you anything about the level of physicality that was being shown by all these guys out there on the field. So kudos to Cincy for hanging tough, and kudos to LJ Martin for putting the team on the back when he absolutely had to. Now, I bring up in the title and at the beginning of the video, like the injury, he was trying to pull himself out of the game. I say injury, just banged up, maybe banged up. Everybody is at this time of the year. And he just went through a game with 30 plus carries, right? Yeah, you're probably going to be a little sore. It doesn't seem like it's going to be anything that's too big of a deal, but I do wonder if you're looking ahead to next week, do you think that's a game where against UCF, you can play well enough to get up early, to use these references from the Solid Verbal, great college football podcast that you should check out? Instead of having to crockpot UCF, can you just flash fry them, blitz them in the first half, be able to rest some guys? Have a game like, look at what Texas Tech did to UCF. They got to rest Baron Morton for over an entire half at a point where he really needs it. Could you do some of that for like a Bear Bachmeier and or LJ Martin next week? We shall see. That's another. I mean, Bear Bachmeier was taking hits tonight. They had that graphic toward the end of the first half where, man, he had taken 10 hits. And I guess that was an interesting thing to me. I'm like, are they counting? Is that counting carries or just him getting hit on passing attempts? Anyway, said Bear Bachmeier had taken 10 hits in the first half. He was definitely feeling it, I'm sure, by the end of that game. And just the totality of hits this season on his body. He's had to carry it a lot. He's not afraid to stand in there and take a shot while he delivers the ball. He gets hit, and he's got a sturdy enough body that he can take some of that, but there's wear and tear that's going to happen because of that throughout the course of a season. Look, as a K-State guy, man, I mean, Colin Klein, I can remember watching him. He definitely changed toward the end of that season because he had just taken so many hits over the course of that campaign. So I know you can't really think that way if you're Kalani Sitake going into the game. I'm sure you got a chance to go to the Big 12 championship game. You got to go lock that down. Make sure you win the game. Take nothing for granted. But maybe just plant that in the back of your mind if that is something that you could have on the radar next week if you play well enough. Look, I feel for Cincinnati a bit here because, as I said, they were in the game enough, but it never felt like they were a serious threat to win it. And they could have been. I mean, they could have applied a lot more game pressure to BYU had special teams not been just a total disaster. You feel for the kicker, but man, 3 missed field goals. They were not looking good. The last 2 for sure didn't look good. And you just felt like the poor guy had no chance. So some of the decision making there perhaps should have changed for Scott Satterfield based on how that was going. But man, there was just he had no shot. He had no shot there. It felt like Rusnak, who missed from 42, 40, and 48. Now, and I will say the one, it looked like the hold was not great. It was a little shaky. Those are all 40 plus yarders. Those are not like total gimmies. But if you had even just like 2 of those, if you had 2 of the 3, the amount of game pressure that puts on BYU, especially when you finally get that breakthrough touchdown drive late in the game that made it 20-14, we could have been talking about something completely different. Now, I think there's some butterfly effect to that. BYU's probably playing things a little bit differently. Had you made some of those field goals early on, I'm not equating it to, hey, that would have been a touchdown to tie the game. But throughout the course of the game, you could have put more pressure on a BYU offensive unit that, was not able to push the ball downfield very much and had to rely a ton on LJ Martin and got stalled out a little bit at times because of that. The other thing is just, turnovers have been an issue for Cincinnati ever since the Utah game, right? There were all the stats about Brendan Sorsby and how well he had been taking care of the football. He threw the one interception against the Nebraska game and then went, the next 7 without a turnover after that. And then he has a couple against Utah, and it's just plagued them the last couple of weeks. Utah, Arizona, and now here in this game against BYU. Sorsby, I know only one of them was on Sorsby in this game. It was a bad one, though. Tanner Wall, who just always seems to be Johnny on the spot, of course, was there to play center field on a ball that, I don't know. RG3 was talking about how badly underthrown it was, which it definitely was. I just didn't think that ball should even really be thrown. I didn't think the window was there. And then on the run, obviously, you run the risk of short arming it like he did, and it gets picked. So it's one thing to say, hey, guys trying to make a play. Like, I guess I can live with that. And he was. But that was like trying to make a play where it felt like there wasn't really much of a shot of the play actually being made anyway. So, and then the receiver that fumbles the ball. It's like, dude, RG3 called it out. It was like, you're getting your leg twisted. Like, again, I feel for him a bit there. Like, you're getting your leg twisted. Maybe that's like a prevent injury thing. But it winds up looking like just a fairly careless turnover when you could not afford it, man. Absolutely could not afford that turnover there. But it winds up happening anyway. So Cincy just got in its own way. And the Bearcats, at least I wouldn't say that this game was there for the taking, but being right in it down to the very end, making this a really thrilling game in the final minutes, that was there for the taking. And Cincinnati was not totally game to do that. BYU definitely looked like the better team, but when you're playing at home in front of that crowd at night, and you do have a quarterback that's capable of making plays like Sorsby, it feels like you always have a bit of a chance. And if you just hit some field goals along the way, you're staying right in that game and giving yourself a real chance. Now, as far as the bigger picture stuff, let me check the super chat here real quick and see if it is more about. Let me see. Joe says, thanks for the show, JL Kurtz. Did you get any follow-up on the satisfactory time for sub exits? Oh, I see. I just saw promptly in the rule. Someone else posted the same thing additionally. Yeah, so this is about, okay. We'll talk about this in a second, Joe. Joe's asking about the Utah game. I just saw people showing me the rule book that said, I saw a couple different versions of what looked like the rule book saying that they have to give the players the opportunity to run off the field. Yeah, we'll see. I read some of what Utah fans were saying about the controversial plays in that game. Let's get to that in just a moment, okay, as we start to branch out a little bit bigger picture here from just the Cincy BYU game. Shout out to my guy, Greg Flugar. I was looking at his summation of what happened today in college football and what it means for the at-large playoff spots. And I think I agreed with his take. I think he's pretty well in line here with saying, if you want, first of all, I think Utah's done. I think Utah's at-large case is done. And I don't know, I wish I could put together all the Big 12 title game scenarios for you like this quickly. Going to have to wait until tomorrow and the dust has settled a little bit more to put all that together. If somehow BYU were to lose to UCF, but for all intents and purposes, it definitely right now looks like it's going to be BYU Texas Tech round 2. But if you're thinking about a BYU at large here, I think total must, you're going to need Auburn to beat Alabama next week, or you're going to need Washington to beat Oregon. Yes, Stanford beating Notre Dame would also really help you out there too, but anybody counting on that? Nobody should be counting on that. I don't think that's going to happen. So you're going to need one of those three things to happen. This was another week. I feel like I've said this 3 weeks in a row. I've come on and done these post-game lives and been like, well, it was not a great day for Big 12 at-large chances, to get a second Big 12 team in the field. Notre Dame just completely, blitzkrieged Syracuse today. They put 70 on them, right? I thought I saw 70. It was 21-0 before Notre Dame's offense was even out there. Oregon won by a couple of scores against USC. Like Oregon's going to be a playoff team. If they I say that if they beat Washington. If they beat Washington, they're definitely going to be a playoff team. It certainly looks like that. And yeah, you did not get the help. Notre Dame and Oregon would have been really nice to see if something could have happened there to help you out, but it did not. You also have here's the like for Utah. I think the issue they're going to have is obviously looking at the defensive performance. One of the worst in school history that they threw out there today, and letting a 5-5 team have you down by 10 points with like 3 minutes left in the game. That's not going to reflect very well. And Vandy just beat the heck out of Kentucky today. Miami controlled Virginia Tech. That got a little closer at the end than it probably needed to, but a double-digit win on the road at Va Tech. I think Utah may well just drop back this week, fall back a couple of spots, and basically be out of the running because nothing they could do at Kansas next week, who looked totally lifeless today, by the way, at Iowa State. Not a good performance for them at all. I think that's basically what you're looking at there. And so BYU, even if, we're talking about the at-large scenario for BYU here being beat UCF, go lose to Tech in the Big 12 championship game, you're probably going to have one of those upsets happen. Oregon going down to Washington, or Auburn beating Alabama. Now, neither of those is like impossible. I mean, that'll definitely give you something to root for. It will keep it very, very interesting next week. I mean, we've seen wild things happen in Auburn, Alabama before. I think Auburn at least has enough talent to make it a close game. I would not have faith in them pulling through in the end. But then, Washington, Oregon. I mean, Oregon has looked beatable at times. They did look pretty darn good today. But Oregon has not been totally invincible this year. I don't think this is last year's Oregon team, right? So you got a bit of a shot there. Those are the games to be really paying attention to, I would say, as of right now. So, look, if you're a BYU fan, your focus is, and I'm sure this team, their focus is, one, yes, get to the Big 12 championship game, but also, can we take out Texas Tech? And if you're a Big 12 fan thinking, hey, I want this league to have two bids, that's what you got to be thinking too. You got to be thinking BYU. How can they take out Texas Tech? I think if you're a Big 12 fan, it might be better if you had Texas Tech get a top 4 seed and have a bye, and we could have that discussion. But if your goal is, hey, I just want this to be a multi-bid league, Texas Tech losing a close game to BYU in the conference championship game, it'd be really hard. The committee would have to work very hard at that point, I think, to leave Tech actually all the way out of the field. So very good chance that you could see two teams in that scenario. But at the same time, I guess I would caution you, don't put anything past a subjective committee having to make subjective decisions about what is going to happen there. Let's see. Arizona State, Colorado went final 42-17. That was a bit of a turnover fest there for a while. When I was watching, it was like nobody can hang on to the ball. Jeff Sims tried to do a little kind of Patrick Mahomes-esque fling it forward and just dropped it right into the lap of a defender. And then I saw two more fumbles in succession after that were each turnovers, all within about 10 minutes of real time. So it was sloppy, but Jeff Sims won the game for Arizona State. You did get Jordan Tyson back. His first catch was a 42-yarder. Jordan Tyson wound up with just 2 for 61, so they didn't get him used a whole lot. But Arizona State eventually They outscored Colorado 29-10 in the second half. So they win 42-17. Theoretically, I think keeping their hopes on life support, though I was looking at a Chris Karpman tweet before the game, who does a great job covering Arizona State. And I believe the scenarios he was outlining all hinged on BYU actually losing to Cincinnati as opposed to losing next week. So I don't know. Once again, I don't have the specific scenarios for you on that right now. Okay, let's get to a couple here. Joe, I'm gonna close with yours, I think, because I want to get back into that Utah game a bit. Zach says, Zach Lake, SRNA. Zach says, remember that gauntlet people were talking about, starting with Arizona? Well, it was a gauntlet, and BYU only took one loss. Love this team. That is a great point. That was definitely the talking point like 6 weeks ago was, man, look at how BYU has to finish the season at Arizona, Utah, at Iowa State, at Tech, TCU, at Cincinnati. And then there is the UCF game there too. But that was the 6 game stretch. and 5-1. The one loss was really rough, but outside of that, continue to find a way. I mean, especially just being road warriors, man. Found a way at Colorado, found a way at Arizona, found a way at Iowa State. All three of those games, by the way, they were down double digits on the road. They win. At Texas Tech, down double digits, did not win. At Cincinnati, controlled the game for the most part, wire to wire. Really impressive stuff from BYU on the road. And I know like a win over Cincinnati to, your SEC and Big Ten wonks is not going to turn a bunch of heads. But we know that Cincinnati team has been at the very worst, very solid this year. And to go in, not really play your best and just keep a team like that at arm's length the entire way, continues to, I think, show some growth, right? Like this was not Colorado. Colorado, clearly a much worse team, and you go and fall in an early 2-score hole there. We could definitely have a debate about Arizona, Cincinnati. Arizona just beat them, right? Similar-ish type of team, and you did not have to storm back from 10 down in the fourth quarter to win that game, right? It still feels like there's been some growth here for BYU by this point in the year. So, Zach, thank you for being here, my friend. See, I'll be honest with you, J-Rod. I hadn't even seen this yet. How much trouble is the ACC in after Georgia Tech lost to Pitt? I didn't even realize that had happened. But yeah, that definitely takes out an at-large spot. Here's the thing for the ACC, though. Miami's creeping back up in this thing. Now, Miami, I think, is basically, I would just put them in the same spot that you had Utah in before. I would guess Miami is going to jump Utah. So they'll be sitting there like, hey, we're in the mix, but we definitely need some chaos this next week. Like they are also rooting hard for Washington and Auburn. A lot of the national discussion I know has been about, hey, they want to keep them as far away from Notre Dame as possible so that they don't have to bring in that head-to-head as something that's a consideration. And if I were a Miami fan, I'd be bringing that up all the time. And they are. And this is back to my show from earlier this week where I said, my frustration is that Brett Yormark is not out here pounding the table for the resume discussion about BYU versus Oregon versus Notre Dame, because there's a total case to be made there. You just got to go make it. Like you have a case. Miami's got a case. They're out there pounding the table trying to make that. So you're going to have whoever wins the ACC. I don't think it's going to be Miami unless did the Georgia Tech thing change the math on that where they can get into the ACC championship game now. Maybe I'm slow and behind on that. And if I am, I apologize. I know before this weekend, it was most likely Miami was not going to play in the ACC championship game. So that would be the only thing I would say is like Miami's still lurking with at least a chance to get an at-large bid. And then you would also have a conference champion theoretically. But anyway, that's probably not as good of an analysis as you would have liked, J-Rod, but that's what I got, my friend. That's what I got, my friend. Okay, Joe. So Joe is asking about the Utah game, which I did a video on this earlier. If you want to go get the total instant reaction to that. Wildest game that we have seen. Craziest Big 12 game of the year. K-State rushes for a program record in rushing yards. Joe Jackson rushed for 293 yards alone, which was the most by any player in Rice-Eccles Stadium history. It was the most in K-State history. It beat Darren Sproles by 1 yard. And K-State with a 10-point lead with under 5 minutes to go, blew it and lost. It was a crazy game. Devin Dampier made two incredible throws, one on a 3rd and 22 to keep that first drive alive, then the touchdown throw, and then he has the big TD run on 4th and 1. I mean, it was about as crazy as a college football game gets. K-State fans, I will tell you, are feeling very jilted about this. And look, you got to go win the game. You got to make the stop on 3rd and 22 for sure on Dampier. But there were two things. One, a 2-point conversion that got run back for 2 points for Utah that made it a 10-point game instead of potentially a 14-point game. They called pass interference. They came back and picked up the flag. I will say I was perusing some of the aftermath of that, and I did see this was not announced on the broadcast that I heard, but BYU fans were saying, or rather Utah fans were saying, okay, the ball was tipped before it got there, and that's why they picked up the flag. Maybe. I mean, I would have liked to have seen like a zoomed in version of the replay. We never really got that. Maybe. even then, I still question, does the contact happen before it gets there? And I still think it's pretty rare that you're going to see something like that picked up. But that at least gave me an explanation on the counter to that. The one that I think is a little bit more difficult to explain is K-State gets the fourth down stop that would have won the game, but they, while holding the play for K-State's subs to get off because Utah had subbed, they then allowed Utah to snap the ball before K-State subs had run off after they had been holding it, and then called K-State for an illegal substitution. I don't know. I got a tougher time with that one. But as far as an explanation on that, Joe is asking about that. Again, additional explanation. I just saw people throwing the rule book at me, and a lot of it was basically what everybody else has said and seen out there, like that they are supposed to get an opportunity to run off the field. So I don't know. I know that I've also seen like, oh, K-State was also offsides. I know the broadcast commented on that. I didn't see it when it happened live. I also didn't have a chance to go back and rewatch it yet because I popped right into the BYU and Arizona State games as soon as I got done. So, yeah, just in fairness, that's where I'm at on it. Look, K-State's got to finish that game. They blew a 14-point lead in the fourth quarter to Baylor earlier this year. You just got to finish those games, man. And that's a part of the problem with this team. Is that they have not been able to do that all year. They've had issues there. They've had issues just in close games in general. Like all these losses basically have been close. Texas Tech, not quite in the very bitter end, but it was relatively close for a while. But you wouldn't file that under the same category. Every other loss, been pretty close. Been pretty close. It is what it is. One of those years. Okay. I appreciate all of you guys. I think that is about it for me for right now. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel if you have not. All that stuff is really, really helpful. If you're somebody that wants to support what I'm doing, you can like this video. You can subscribe to the channel. You can subscribe to the Open for Business Big 12 newsletter at ofbnews.com. That is ofbnews.com to subscribe to that. And let's see. John-Kurtz-4 on Venmo. If you want to leave me a question or comment there, I will get to it on the live show tomorrow. We'll have a chance to digest some things. Hopefully we'll have some Big 12 title scenarios if BYU were to happen to slip up, just to be able to get you that info if you're thinking about what a chaos scenario would look like. But yeah, the dust has settled on, rather mundane week, I would say, of college football this week. But we'll have, no, it's not really for the Big 12, but rivalry week, theoretically, quote unquote, across college football here coming up this week. So thank you guys for hanging out with me and bearing with the sound issues there at first. Take care, and I will talk to y'all soon.